Begin the Gemara today on Daf Samachay Medalef, right at the beginning of the Yom. Tanya. The Gemara before brought the Shvuah that Moshe Rabbeinu made when he was in Midian, that he's not going to leave his father-in-law Yisrael. And then the Eibusha tells him, came time to be Mati Neder, because you have to go back to the Yidden to redeem them from Mitzrayim. So in connection to that story, the Gemara brings a halacha here in a Braisa. Tanya, it says in a Braisa, Muder ano machavere. Person makes a neder not to have any ano from his friend. Ein matirin loy ela b'fanov. So you only matter this neder in front of that friend that you made the neder not to have ano from him. So the Gemara doesn't spell out details or reasons for this. So the Ran over here says that there are two different reasons that are brought for this. He quotes from the Yerushalmi and from other places. And the Yerushalmi there says either the reason is because speaking specifically about making a hana that you're not going to have hana from your friend, and you're making this for the benefit of your friend. It's all for his benefit. You don't want to take things from him, you don't want to use things from him, so you make that hana for his benefit. So the reason why they said that you should not be mated the neder unless you're in front of him, because they want the heter of the neder to be a proper heter. And if you know that you have to do it in front of him, you're going to be embarrassed to be mated the neder without a proper Pesach. You made it for his benefit, and now you want to take away that benefit for him, you're only going to do it with a proper Pesach. The way the Yerushalmi refers to this is mipnei abusha. If you're in front of your friend that you made the neder for his benefit, and you're being mated that neder, you'll be embarrassed to stand be mated neder haphazardly. That's one reason the Yerushalmi says. Another reason the Yerushalmi says is that it has to do with mipnei chashad. If you make a neder not to have a no from your friend, and your friend knows about this, and now all of a sudden, one day you come and you walk into his house and you eat his food and you're having a no from him, he's going to wonder what's going on over here. I know you made a neder, and all of a sudden you're having a no from me. He's going to be chayshid that you're not fulfilling, keeping your neder. So therefore you have to be mated the neder in his presence, so he shouldn't suspect you that you're not listening, you're not doing what your neder is. So according to this second pshat, the Ran actually makes 2 points. First of all, the Ran brings a girse. It's interesting, the Ran doesn't bring it here, but the Ran in a tshuva brings this, and Taisus over here brings this girse, that the way to read our Gemara is, Hamudar ano machavere bifanov. This whole halacha that you have to be mated the neder in the presence of your friend is only if you made the neder in his presence. And that makes sense according to the second pshat here. If the point is that your friend is going to suspect you for not keeping your neder, so that's only if you made the neder in his presence. So then he knows about this neder, and now all of a sudden you come and have a no from him. And the Ran in the Tshuva says that he saw this girsa in the Taisvis after he wrote his Piddush on the Gemara, and he says, if I'll have time, I'll correct my Piddush in the Gemara, because in this Piddush in the Gemara he doesn't bring this girsa. Interesting. Another point that Ran says, according to this reason of Mipnei Chashad, it would come out, you don't have to actually be matan neder in front of your friend, because the main point is just the fact that he shouldn't be chayshid you. So as long as you notify him, whether you will matter the neder in his presence, or at least you notify him, you should know I was matter this neder, so then he's not going to be chayshid you anymore, so then that would be good enough as well. So now the Gemara brings the source of this. Where do you see this, that you have to be matter the neder b'fanav? We know, and Amili, what's the source of this? Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman says, the pasuk says, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe b'Midyan. The Eibusha tells Moshe in Midyan, Leich shuv Mitzrayim, go return to Mitzrayim. Ki meisa kol anoshim, the people that want to kill you died. Amaloi b'Midyan, Amaloi, that is, the Eibusha tells Moshe Rabbeinu b'Midyan nadarta. In Midyan, by your father-in-law Yisrael, that's where you made the neder. Leich v'hate nidracha b'Midyan. So go back to Midyan, right? The Eibusha is speaking to him over there by the snag. Go back to Midyan, and you have to be mati and neder there in Midyan in front of Yisrael himself. The Chsiv, as it says, that Moshe Rabbeinu swore that he's not going to leave. Vayoyel Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu swore. The term Vayoyel means a shvuah. And the Gemara proves this. Ein Allah elo shvuah. Allah is a term used for a shvuah. The Chsiv, as it says in the pasuk, Vayove oisai ba'Allah. He brought him into a shvuah. What's this talking about? This is a pasuk that's talking about Nebuchadnezzar and Tzidkiyahu. Nebuchadnezzar had Tzidkiyahu make a shvuah that he's not going to rebel against him, and he appointed him, he allowed him to be a king. That term there, Allah, means a shvuah, as the Gemara brings what it says in another pasuk. It says, V'gam b'melech Nebuchadnezzar marad. Eventually, Tzidkiyahu did rebel against Nebuchadnezzar. Asher ishbiyoi belikim. And even though he swore that he's not going to rebel against him, but Tzidkiyahu did not keep his shvuah, and he did rebel against Nebuchadnezzar. So here you see that the term Allah means hishbiyah, that he had him swear. So here as well, Vayoel Moshe Rabbeinu swore he's not going to leave, and the Eibishter tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you want to be matir your shvua, you have to go back and be matir it in the presence, in Midyan, in the presence of your father-in-law. So this is the source of this halacha, that you see that it's b'fanav. Now the Gemara comes back over here to this story. The Gemara will explain the story that happened over there regarding Tzidkiyahu and Nebuchadnezzar. What does it mean that he rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar? Mai Marduse, what is it that he rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar? So the Gemara brings the story. Ashkechei Tzidkiyahu Nebuchadnezzar. Tzidkiyahu saw and found Nebuchadnezzar davaka ochel arne v'chaya, that he ate a rabbit alive, which is very, very disgusting, very despicable. So Nebuchadnezzar was embarrassed of this. Amalei, so he tells Tzidkiyahu, Ishtabali, swear to me the limaglis ilavoi, iloi. You're not going to reveal this to anybody. V'leitepik milse, and the matter of what happened here will not be known to anybody. Ishtaba. So Tzidkiyahu swore that he swore that he's not going to reveal this. But l'saif, in the end, what happened? Avakam mitztayet Tzidkiyahu begufe. Tzidkiyahu was having a lot of pain about this. Why did I make this shvuah? Here I had an opportunity to embarrass Nebuchadnezzar, which is such a big Rasha, and I can tell everybody about what kind of a despicable human being he is. So he had a lot of pain about the fact that he made such a shvuah. And so much so that he couldn't learn, he couldn't daven for himself, as the Mefarshim may bring. So what happened? Itchel ashvuase. He went and he requested a heta. He was matir his shvuah that he made not to say the story about what he saw in Nebuchadnezzar. And Va'amar, he told people about what he saw, that Nebuchadnezzar eating a rabbit, such a despicable human being. Shoma Nebuchadnezzar heard about this, the people are embarrassing him about this. So Shalach, he sent, and Va'aisi Sanhedrin v'Tzidkiyahu, he sent to bring the whole Sanhedrin and Tzidkiyahu to him, they summoned them to him to ask him, well, how did people find out about this? He knew that only Tzidkiyahu knew about this, and he told people about this. Amar Lahain, and he says to them, Chazison, Mai ka'ovet Tzidkiyahu, did you see what Tzidkiyahu did? Lav hachi ishtaba b'shma d'shmaya. Isn't this true that he swore in the name of Hashem, the loy maglina, that he's not going to reveal what happened? Amalei, so Tzidkiyahu said, Itchli ashvuasa. I requested a hatter for the shvuah that I made. Amalei, son of Nebuchadnezzar asked, Mitchell and ashvuasa, you could do this? You can request a hatter for a shvuah that you make? Amrilei, so the Sanhedrin said, yes, you can. Amaluhu, so Nebuchadnezzar asks about this. B'fanav, or yafilu shalei b'fanav. If there's a shvuah that's made, could this be done? The heta that you request for this has to be in the presence of the person that you made the shvuah for his benefit, or even if it's not for his benefit. So over here, you see, in this story, it's actually a shvuah that was made for the benefit of Nebuchadnezzar. That's the source of that opinion that I mentioned before, that says that this whole halacha of b'fanav is dafke if it's for the benefit of that person. So he's asking, Nebuchadnezzar is saying, if you mat the shvuah for him, it should be in my presence. If it's the whole thing was for my benefit. Amri le, so the Sanhedrin answered Nebuchadnezzar, you're right, b'fanav. You only matter such a kind of a shvuah in the presence of the person that was made for him. Amar lahain, so Nebuchadnezzar says to the Sanhedrin, va'atan mayav disun. So what did you do? You were matter this shvuah, not in my presence. My time lo yamrisun leTzidkiyahu. Why didn't you tell Tzidkiyahu that we can't be matter the shvuah for you unless we're going to be in the presence of Nebuchadnezzar? So now he's telling them, you did something inappropriate. You can't be matter the shvuah. Miyad, immediately, Yoshvu la'aretz. He had them, or Yeshvu la'aretz. Nebuchadnezzar had them sit on the ground. Yidmu ziknei bas tzion. It says there in the pasuk that continues, Hello, afar al reisham. In the beginning, he gave them proper honor. He sat them down on honorable chairs to sit, cushioned chairs to sit. And now he took it all away. He had them sit on the floor. Amar Rab Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, what happened? Sheshamtu karim tachtein. They took away their comfortable seating, their comfortable cushions from under them, and he had them sit on the floor for doing this, helping Tzidkiyahu be mater his shvuah in a way that really was not allowed. Okay, that's the end of the story. Now the Rishonim discuss over here whether this was allowed or not. The Ran over here discusses, other Rishonim discuss, so this heter that Tzidkiyahu got for his shvuah, was it a heter or not? It wasn't in the presence of Nebuchadnezzar. We just said it, that it's supposed to be in the presence of the person that you make the shvuah for him. So some Rishonim say that from this story you could learn out that b'di'evet this heter takes effect. Even though we said that the heter should be done in front of your friend, but b'di'evet it takes effect. So therefore Tzidkiyahu got this heter b'di'evet and it took effect. Others say that b'derech klal such a heter does not take effect, not even b'diavad either. And over here, tzidkiyahu, this case of tzidkiyahu is different, and the reason is because, like it said before, he was so pained by this that he couldn't function, he couldn't learn, he had no choice, he had to be matah this shvua. In such a kind of situation, and also don't forget, tzidkiyahu was the king. And the king comes to the Sanhedrin and says to give him a heter, the Sanhedrin has a mitzvah to listen to the king, and especially in a case that he can't function, okay, he's so pained by this, and therefore in such a case he could be matter the shvua, not b'fanav. But in a regular case, you have to be matter the shvua only b'fanav. But I think there are other Rishonim that say that Taka Tzidkiyahu was punished for this because he was over on a shvua and he was matter the shvua in a way that wasn't really a proper heter, and he was actually punished for this. So there's like I said, there's a discussion over here in the Rishonim about this heter of the shvua.
So the Rishonim answered why I think that it's a heter couldn't answer. He asked him why did he do it, and he said it couldn't answer. Right.
Lachatchila, the best would be to do it b'fanav. So that's so when the Nebuchadnezzar asked the question, so the Chatchila you are supposed to do it dafke b'fanav. So that's why he was upset at them. Okay, Zok Eilige Mishnah Rab Meir says, Yesh Dvarim Shehein Kenoilad. There are certain things regarding a neder that are considered to be noilad. We learned this in the previous Mishnah. Noilad means something new that developed after you made the neder, and you want to use that as a Pesach, as an opening for the heter of your neder. So there are things that are like noilad. It's like a new development, Vata'enan Kenoilad. But it's not like something new. It's not like something new, and therefore this could be used as a Pesach for the neder. And actually, as we'll see in the Gemara, it could even be that you don't even need a Pesach at all. This is something that automatically the neder is going to be batel.
Because it is changed.
We'll see. Let's see over here. The Gemara is going to bring, the Mishnah itself actually will bring examples for this. And the Chachamim do not agree to Rab Meir in this. That's the Girsa in our Mishnah. There are others that are actually Geiris here. The Chachamim agree to Rab Meir. Okay. Keitzad, what's the case that we're speaking about? Omar, a person says, Kainam, he makes a neder, she'eini noises plainis, that I'm not marrying this woman. Why? Shavia ra, because she has a terrible father. So he doesn't want to marry her. So he explained why. Via ra. Amru loi, so they come and tell him, Mace, he passed away, Oishas tshuva, or he did tshuva. So in such a case, he can use this as a Pesach for his neder. Because he said the reason is because the father is bad, but the father passed away or he did tshuva. And like I said, some say he gave the reason for his neder, so he doesn't even need any heter at all. If this is the reason for his neder, so then if the father passed away, there's no neder anymore. Weiter, the Mishnah says, another example, person made a neder, person makes a neder, I'm not going to come into this house, there's a wild dog in this house. There's a snake in this house. Amrullah, they told the person, Meisa Kelev, the dog died, the snake was killed. So Harehein Kenoilad Ve'enk Eina Kenoilad, these are cases that are like Noilad, something new that developed, but it's not considered to be like something new that developed. And you could be matter this neder. Ve'ein Chachamim Vaidim Lai. But the Chachamim still did not agree to this. Okay, so the Gemara is going to bring two pshatim in the pshat of the Mishnah. Zak the Gemara, the Mishnah said, Kainim Shani Nichnas Abai Zeh Shakelav Chulu. Or Kainim Shani, or goes back to the first case of the Mishnah. A person says he's not going to marry this woman, and because the father is bad, and then he's told Meis that he passed away. So the Gemara asks Meis, if the father then passes away, Noiladu, isn't this considered to be a new development? Why should this be different than the halacha of Noilad that we had in the first Mishnah, that for a new development you cannot be matan neder? Only if you remember, Rabbi Eliezer said, for a new development you can be matan neder. Otherwise, Chachamim, we hold you can't be matan neder. So why is this case any different? Rav Huna explains, this situation is like a person that conditioned his neder on a certain circumstance. Because when he made the neder, he gave the reason for his neder. Even though he didn't clearly say, I'm only making this neder not to marry this woman on the condition that the father is alive. But since he gave the reason that he doesn't want to marry her because of the father, who the father is a bad person, so that's like he made it conditional on that thing. So therefore, once we find out that the father passed away, so now the neder, so like I said, it could even be that the neder is completely batel. Or even if the neder is not automatically batel, he needs a heter for it because he didn't clearly make it as a condition, but nevertheless, since he gave this as a reason, we're not going to consider this to be as like a new noila that's not related to the way he made his neder in the first place, but he can use this as a pesach for his neder. Yeah, so this, but Chachamim disagree with this, at least according to the gears that we have in our Mishnah. Chachamim say, in the end of the day, he didn't say it clearly as a condition, so therefore the neder will not. It's considered to be something which is nailad. It's a new development, and that you can't use it as a heter. But Rabbi Yochanan says the pshat on our Mishnah is different. The case here is kvar meis, that the father, he's told that when you made the neder, the father had already died, or kvaras tshuva. In the time when you made the neder, he had already done tshuva. Kam relay. That's what they're telling him. And that's why the Mishnah is saying, Gevir, that it's not considered to be nailat, because it turns out that it already had, he just wasn't aware of this circumstance. According to this pshat of Rabbi Yochanan, it's hard to understand what the Mishnah is saying. Why is the Mishnah saying that it's kenoilad, but it's not kenoilad? This is a regular case of a heter for a neder, where the Pesach is based on a circumstance that you were not aware of. The father was already dead. So why is why it never took effect? So why? Or it's at least it's a Pesach that is a regular Pesach like you have every neder. So the Ran doesn't answer, but the Tosfos over here answers and says Mishnah means to say such a kind of situation. The Chachamim, you would think maybe Chachamim should be geyser. What happens if it's a case that you made this neder and the father actually was still alive when you made the neder and he passed away afterwards? So then it is nailad. Father passed away later. Here you have a situation where it turns out that the father was already dead when he made the neder. If you're going to allow a person to use this as a Pesach when he had already passed away before, you might confuse and think that I could always use this, that the father passed away as a Pesach, even in a case where he passed away afterwards. So you should be geyser. That's what the Mishnah is saying. That it's kenailad, but it's similar to a case of nailad. People could easily confuse this with a case where the father passed away afterwards. But it's einan kenailad. Meir says that because he passed away before, we're not geyser. But the Chachamim that argue, according to our Gears, the Chachamim say, we're concerned, we're geyser, that a person might confuse and say that you can use this as a heter even if he passed away afterwards. That's Tosfos' pshat in the Gemara. Masav Rababa, so Rababa asks on Rabbi Yechanan's pshat. Kainam, the next Mishnah later, on the next staff. So it says there, a person makes a neder, Kainam she'eni noisa leplainis. I'm not marrying this woman, why? Ku'ura, she's ugly. But Varei not, turns out that he made a mistake. She's beautiful. Shchayra, he says, I'm not marrying her because she's black or she's a dark complexion. Varei Luvana, she's white or she has a light complexion. Or Ktsara, he says, I don't want to marry her because she's short. Varei Arucha, turns out she's tall. So Mutterba, he's allowed to marry her. And the Mishnah explains, Loi mipnei sheku'ura v'nasis. No, it's not because at the time that he made the neder, she was ugly and now she became beautiful. Or shchayra v'nasis levana, she was dark and she became light. Ktsara v'nasis arucha, she was short and she became tall. Ela sha neder tos. This is, we had already before, the categories of nidre tos. He made a neder and the neder turns out to be a mistake. And therefore the neder doesn't take place at all. Okay, that's the halach of the Mishnah on the next daf. So the Gemara now asks, according to Rav Huna, the way he explained our Mishnah here, person says he's not going to marry this woman because the father is a bad person. The Omar, he says, what's the pshat in our Mishnah? Nase ketoyle nidrei bedava. So over here, he didn't clearly say that I'm not marrying her only because it conditioned that the father is alive because the father is a bad person. He just says, I'm not marrying her. And he gives a reason, because I don't like her father. So in such a case, we say that it becomes like he's toiler his neder in something. So therefore we could say that we understand the difference between the halacha of our Mishnah and the halacha of the later Mishnah. That over here the chiddush is that tane toiler nidre bedava. The Mishnah here is teaching me this halacha that he makes a neder not to marry this girl because he says because of the father. So because he gave the reason, it's as if he made that conditional to his neder. That's one kind of a neder. And then Vitana, the Mishnah later is saying Vitana neder tos. Over there, it's different. Over there, it's mamish a neder, which is a mistake because the person clearly says, I'm not marrying this ugly woman. He didn't say, I'm not marrying her. And then gave a reason because she's ugly. He says, I'm not marrying this ugly woman. Over there, it's mamish a neder, which is a mistake. So we understand the difference between the two Mishnahs, why it's separated into halachas. El Rabbi Yochanan, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, Dama Kvar Meis, what's the pshat in our Mishnah? He says that he's not marrying this woman because the father is a bad person and the father's not even alive b'chlal. Or kvar asa tshuva. Whatever problem he has with the father is not a problem anymore. He did tshuva. So if so, it's literally the same kind of a thing. He made a neder saying that he's not going to marry this person because of a certain situation, which is pashut not true. Over there it's the ugliness, over here it's the fact that the father is not alive. So lama lila misne trei zimni. Why is it saying this neder twice? Why is it dividing it two different Mishnahs? Neder tos. It's both the same exact thing. It's a neder that was made by mistake. Kasha. So this remains a question according to Rabbi Yochanan. What Tosfos here points out that the Gemara's question is not so simple, and the reason is because there is a distinction between this case and the later case. V'haraya, in this case, at least according to arguers, it says Ein chachamim ma'idum le, chachamim argue, and in the later case over there, by the neder, it says that I'm not marrying this woman because she's ugly or because she's dark. Over there, chachamim don't argue. And what's the reason for the difference? The reason for the difference is, like I pointed out, the Tosfos' pshat in the Gemara is that over here we're afraid that a person could confuse this case with a case that the father actually passed away later. Mashenkin over there, when you're talking about this woman that's ugly and it turns out that she never was ugly, over there there's nothing to confuse. It turns out that she wasn't ugly. So the Chachamim over here argue and over there don't argue. So that's a reason, the difference between the two cases. So therefore Tosfos says what the Gemara is really asking is, these two cases are not exactly the same, but they're both cases that fall in the same category. They're categories of Nedarim that are Nidrei Tos. So why did it divide it into two separate Mishnayos with the interruption of other cases here? It should have been brought in the same Mishnah. That's the question of Rabbi Yochanan. And at that the Gemara remains with the question. Sagt the Mishnah weiter, V'oid Omar Rab Meir. Nada Allah Rab Meir said, you can use as a Pesach for a heter for a neder with a pasuk, with an isser that it says in the Torah. You tell a person as follows. Let's say a person makes a neder that he doesn't want to lend somebody a tool that he has or give something to someone. And we tell him, if you would know, the fact that you don't want to give something to your friend, you're being over on the love of taking revenge or keeping the hatred in your heart. He's doing this as a revenge. His friend got him upset about something. So do you know that you're being over on this love? Or you're being over on hating your brother in your heart. Or you're being over to love your friend. And or also that you have to support your brother. You have to shu'ani, your brother, someone that's poor, you have to give him money. And now you can't give him parnasa. So Omar, and this person says, if I would have known that this is the case, that I'm being over on one of these Yisurim, I would have never made the neder. This is a Pesach for the neder. So the Chiddush in this mission over here is, if you remember, we had before, you tell a person you make a neder, you know that the Eibusher doesn't want you to make a neder. The Gemara says you can't use that as a Pesach for a neder, because a person will be embarrassed to say, I would have made the neder anyway. He's not going to be honest if you bring up the Eibusher. But over here, you're bringing up the Issa that it says in the Pasuk, and Reb Meir says that could be used as a neder. So the Rosh over here says, because when you bring up the Eibishter explicitly, that's something that a person is embarrassed to speak up against, to have the chutzpah to speak up and say, no, I would make the neder anyways. But you're bringing up a Pasuk in the Torah, that's not so harsh. That's something that a person will be honest about it, so you could use it as a heter. That's the Chiddush over here in this Mishnah. Okay, Zakta Gemara, Amalei Rav Hune, Barav Ketine, Le Rabbanon. Or according to another version over here, he said this to Le Rabba. The question is, regarding the case that it said, that you tell a person you're not going to share, you're not going to give anything to this person, and now he's poor, and you have to give him money, and you can't be mekayim, the mitzvah in the Torah, to support your brother that's poor. So why can this person come and say that it doesn't stop me from doing my mitzvah of tzedakah and supporting him? Because you should say as follows, Kol de ma'ani, anybody that becomes poor, including my brother, my relative that becomes poor, lavalai nafel. It's not, he doesn't fall upon me that now I exclusively have to come and support him. My demateli lefarnesai, that now it's my obligation, my responsibility to come and to provide for him. Bahadi kula alma mefarnesalei, together with everybody else, I will support him. I'll give money to there's a kupa of tzedakah, that there's a gabbai tzedakah that collects money for poor people. I'll contribute to that general tzedakah fund that will support this person as well. I don't have to support him directly, so it's not stopping me of supporting him, so it's not a contradiction to my neder. So how is this being used as a Pesach for the heter of the neder? Amalei, so Rabbi answered, Ani Omer, I say, Kala Neifel, a person that becomes poor, and he falls upon someone else to have to support him, so he doesn't go first to the tzedakah to get money from the general tzedakah fund to get supported, but he goes first to his relatives. He tries first quietly to go to his relatives to get support. And therefore, from his relatives, he won't be able to get support if you made a neder. So there's two pshatim here in this Gemara. In the simple pshat of the Gemara, it sounds like it's not saying that the relative has an obligation more than anyone else. He doesn't have an obligation, but the nature of things is going to be so. That a person that loses his money is going to first try to come quietly to his own relatives. And therefore, if you can't support him, you're not going to have the ability to fulfill the mitzvah of v'chei chichi imach. But some say that from this Gemara you see that the mitzvah of v'chei chichi imach does apply. There is an obligation first to help a relative more than someone else. And that's why this could be a heter, this could be a pesach for the neder. You can use as a pesach for a person that made a neder that he's not going to have enough from his wife. He made a neder that he's divorcing his wife. And he doesn't realize that it's going to be very expensive. He's going to have to give her the money of the ksubah. So you can use the ksubah that he'll have to pay his wife as a pesach. If you'd known how expensive this ksubah is, would you have made this neder? You can use that. The Gemara brings, and the Mishnah brings an incident that happened. A person made a neder not to have enough from his wife, so now he's obligated to divorce her. And her ksubah was 400 dinrim, more than the regular amount of a ksubah. It was an expensive ksubah. He came in front of Rabbi Kiva with this situation. And Rabbi Kiva said, you made a neder, you have to divorce your wife, and then you're obligated to pay her the full ksubah. Rebbe says to Rabbi Kiva, my Rebbe, ches meis dinrim hiniya chaba. My father left us 800 dinrim, and natal achi dald meis. My brother, it's just me and my brother. My brother took 400, vani dald meis, and I took 400. So basically, what this person's telling Rabbi Kiva, this 400 dinrim that I have to give my wife now for the ksubah is the entire inheritance. It's all the money that I have. So loidaya, wouldn't it be enough? Shetitel hi masayim vani masayim. I'll give her the regular amount of a ksubah. I'll give her 200 and I could keep 200 for myself. Why should I give her all of the money that I have? Amalei Rabbi Kiva didn't accept this. Rabbi Kiva said, the simple pshat of the mission is, even if you would have to sell the hairs of your head, you're going to be obligated to give her the entire ksubah, even from the hairs of your head. This is the ksubah that you owe her. Amaloi, Rabbi Kiva now says to this person, Amaloi, that is, the person said to Rabbi Kiva, if I would know this is the obligation that I have to pay when I divorce my wife, I would never have made this neder to divorce her. So Rabbi Kiva was mata the neder. So the Gemara now says on this, you learn the simple pshat of the story of what happened here. He inherited money from his father. So we're talking about money. Money is movable items. So this is going back to the obligation of a ksubah. What becomes meshubed? What becomes subservient? Or where is the lien of that obligation of the ksubah go upon? Does it go only upon lands, properties, or even on money, on movable items? We learned about this in Masech Ksubas. So, frakte Gemara, metaltli mi mishtabdi l'ksubah, the movables, in other words, money in this case, does this become meshubed? Is there a lien on this for the ksubah? If he has money there inherited from his father, he can keep it. It doesn't become meshubed to the ksubah. Why is Rabbi Kiva saying he has to pay this? Abai says the way to understand the story is that it was karka shava ches meya dinner. There was properties that were worth 800 dinner. That's what he inherited from his father. But Vakatani, doesn't the Mishnah say that Rabbi Kiva told him even the hairs of your head that you would have to give for the ksubah as well. And the hairs of his head is considered to be metaltalin. Interesting, there's actually a discussion here in the Rishonim about this, because a human being is not considered to be metaltalin, so seemingly the hairs of his head is not metaltalin either. But the Rishonim say if it's long hair, which is about to be cut, that's already considered to be metaltalin. It's already oimidli gozes. So this is metaltalin. And Rabbi Kiva is saying to him that you'd have to pay this for the ksubah. So the Gemara answers, Hachikama, the pshat of the Mishnah is different. What he was telling him is, even if you would have to sell the hairs of your head in order for you to have food to eat for yourself. In other words, you're giving away all your money and you have no way how to support yourself to be able to eat food, and you have to sell your own hairs to eat your own food. Even then, you're going to be obligated to give away all these properties that you own for her for the ksubah. But not that he has to give her the ksubah from the money or from the hairs that he's going to have to sell. Okay, let's just finish off over here the Inyan. So the Gemara says, Shamit mino. So what do I see from here? Ein misadrin lebal chayv. When a person owes money, we don't evaluate how much properties or alma, how much value of money he has, and we leave for himself what he needs to support himself. This is an argument in the Gemara Bab Metzia. When a person owes money, this is actually learned out from the halacha of Erechin. When a person says he's going to give a certain value to hektish, we don't take away everything he owns. We have to evaluate how much he needs to support himself, some basic necessities he can keep, and the rest you'll have to give to hektish. So there's an argument whether we apply the same when a person owes money to somebody. Does Bezdin come and evaluate and leave for him his basic necessities, and the rest he has to pay? Or do we say no? If you owe money, it's different than Erechin. You have to give everything. From here we see our Mishnah, Rabbi Kiva was telling him you have to give everything. And even the hairs, you're going to have to support yourself from selling the hairs from your head. So we see that Ein Mesad and L'Bal Chayv. Amar Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak said, not necessarily. Loimar, what this is saying is, She'ei Mekaren Shtar Ksuba. We're not going to tear the Shtar Ksuba. In other words, today, you won't have to pay the full Ksuba, because we're going to leave you the amount that you need for your basic necessities. But we're not going to tear the Ksuba though. In the future, when you get richer, and you will have money to pay, so then she can come back with her Ksuba and collect the rest. Unlike it is by Erechin. By Erechin, we go according to the whatever the person could afford now when he made that neder of the Erech. But over here, the point is we're not going to tear the Ksuba, and in the future we're going to allow her to collect. So there's no raya from here.